Hey guys, tonight we begin with something a little unexpected. You're not a person. You're a camel. Postal camel, to be exact, in the mighty Mali Empire of the 14th century. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You awaken just before dawn, your heavy eyelids lifting to reveal a smudged sky where stars still whisper against fading indigo. The camp's tents form a half-circle around you, simple goat hair nomad tents, some more weathered than others, their flaps tied back to let in the cool desert air. A thin layer of sandy dust coats your broad back and sturdy legs, a reminder that for the past few nights you've been resting against nothing but open sky and shifting dunes. The handlers have already prepared your leather panniers with bundles of letters, cloth packets sewn shut, sealed with coloured wax. These are the Empire's postal messages, destined for coastal ports and trading centres hundreds of miles away. You stretch your long neck and flex your knees, each movement accompanied by the soft creak of cartilage and the rumble of dawn prayer, from a nearby mosque's call to prayer. Historically, camels were introduced into West Africa around the 10th century, but by the 1300s they were crucial to the trans-Saharan trade routes, carrying gold, salt, and messages across unforgiving sands. It's said that Mansa Musa's legendary caravan of 60,000 men and 100 camels brought the attention of the Mediterranean world in 1324. Historians still debate whether that pilgrimage truly numbered so high, or if later chroniclers exaggerated the figures to emphasize Mali's wealth and grandeur. As the handlers approach, you lift your head higher, nostrils flaring at the aromatic blend of millet porridge cooking over smoky embers and goat cheese pressed by a nearby matron. They check your panniers, one strapped snug under your belly, another secured across your hump. The leather is stiff, treated with salted water to prevent rot, but soft enough now to mold to your shape. A curious detail, camel leather was prized in medieval West Africa for its durability, even though tanning methods were rudimentary compared to those in northern Moorish cities. In some regions they boiled hides in palm oil and ash, creating a rugged finish that resisted both moisture and sand abrasion. Your first handler, a tall man with a woven turban, murmurs words in Soninka as he adjusts the cinch. You don't understand the language, but the tone is gentle, almost affectionate. Then he taps you on the side of your hump, cueing you forward. Your hooves sink softly into the cool sand at the camp's edge. The morning breeze carries hints of acacia resin and distant riverine life, the Niger River lying tantalizingly beyond a day's journey. You step forward. Each footfall is measured, front left, back right, a steady rhythm like a heartbeat guiding you across the dunes. The handlers fall into formation alongside, a small protective ring ensuring you stay on the worn path. You're aware that in some parts of the empire, roads were little more than groundwater tracks marked by stones or wooden posts, ancient guides left by Berber traders long before Mali's rise. Others believe that many routes were informal, carved by centuries of footsteps, hoofprints, and compass stars. Your path is one of the most traveled, and yet each twist in the dunes feels like a new horizon. The sun peaks above the eastern sand, ridges painting everything in molten gold. You feel warmth seeping into your thick coat, and you shrug mentally at your handler's occasional swipes to clear fallen dust. This coat, designed by evolution, can tolerate massive temperature shifts. hot, days reaching 45 degrees Celsius, 113 degrees Celsius, and nights dropping to near freezing. No blanket could compare, no building could shelter you better than your own fur. Ahead, the caravan's first waypoint appears. A line of weathered baobab trees, their thick trunks twisted like ancient sentinels. Camels and caravans have used these trees as meeting points and message exchanges for generations. Some say the hollows at the trees' bases once hid dispatches for spies. Others suggest travelers carved small symbols into the bark, rudimentary messages indicating water sources or safe passage. Archaeologists still debate whether some markings were tribal emblems or simple mileage markers. You stop briefly as the handlers unload a few letters, passing them to a rival courier heading south. You exchange a sniff and a snort, your camel way of greeting, and then, with a soft grunt, resume your own eastward journey. The letters you carry are for Timbuktu, Gao, and the coastal port of Wallata, where they'll be loaded onto boats destined for North African markets. You're part of a vast network that binds West Africa's political and commercial life together. One handler offers you a handful of dates, pressing them gently into your lips. You chew them into sweet bitter pulp, savoring the energy boost. Dates are what early morning men called walker's gold, and indeed, their high sugar content gives you the stamina for the long trek ahead. As you plod onward, the sandy trail stretches endlessly, dunes rising and falling like breath. Behind you, the camp fades into nothingness. Ahead, the empire's promise and peril lie intertwined. You lift your head, eyes squinting against bright skies, and think, I probably wouldn't survive a week without my postal duty. Yet here you are, started, steadfast, and ready for every endless step. You stand still as your handler secures the last strap, feeling the gentle press of leather and salt against your hump. The morning sun tilts higher, warming the cool air, but the leather remains slightly crisp from last night's chill. You inhale deeply, drawing in scents of spiced millet and hot sand, an aroma as familiar to you as the call of the desert wind. The panniers on either side of your back are made of tanned camel hide, stiff yet supple, each embossed with tribal patterns, denoting origin and destination. Historically, West African tanners learned their craft from Berber and Andalusian craftsmen, adapting techniques to local materials. It's said that dyeing leather with henna extract became popular in Timbuktu during the 14th century, giving hides a reddish tint that resisted both sun and abrasion. Historians still debate whether henna's use was a cultural import or a local innovation born of necessity. Your handler rubs brine, saltwater brine, along each seam, sealing the leather against sandstorms and rain. The tack smell of salt mixes with rich, oiled hide, creating a scent that makes you purr inside. Camel leather treated with salt had a dual purpose. It prevented microbial decay and gave the panniers extra weight, keeping them from flapping in the wind like stubborn sailcloth. A curious fact, some caravans even used brine mixed with crushed alum to tighten leather paws, resulting in waterproof cargo bags, though they smelled faintly of ocean for weeks. As he tightens the cinch beneath your belly, you feel every notch adhesion. Each click of the buckle is a soft echo, like distant drums calling you forward. The straps cross your back in an X, practical and decorative, locking the panniers in place. Inside those pouches lie letters sealed with crimson wax, cloth bundles of trade receipts and occasional small metal ingots of gold dust. You're literally carrying the empire's lifeblood on your back. No pressure, right? Your hooves shift on the warm sand, nudging tiny grains that cling between your toes. The handler murmurs in Zoninka, his voice calm and affectionate. You don't know the exact words, but the tone says, "Let's get moving, friend." His touch is reassuring, like an old friend adjusting your saddle so you won't slip mid-stride. You snort softly, a polite camel chuckle, and flick an ear at his braided tassel hanging by your ear. That tassel is more than ornament. Some say it wards off desert spirits. Others insist it's simply a way to distinguish camel ownership during night watches. Anthropologists still debate whether such talismans were spiritual protections or early branding tools. A light breeze carries the faint laughter of children in a nearby Berber camp. You're glad they're not counting your humps today. You might be the only camel with a wardrobe malfunction. Speaking of humor, consider the camel who lost a pannier and had to explain it to the emir. That's a conversation you'd pay to hear. The handler pats your flank, testing the straps. All is secure. You perform a tiny shimmy, checking for chafing. The leather rubs against your fur, warm and reassuring. You imagine it must feel like wearing a gentle hug. In reality, it's just well-crafted tack, but in the desert, that's luxury. You lift one back hoof and scratch at an itch near the girth. The handler laughs softly and offers a handful of crushed acacia pods as a snack. Acacia thorns? Don't worry, they're ground into a smooth paste that camels adore. It's like camel candy. You munch, feeling energy fizz through your muscles. Critical, since you're about to embark on a trek of more than 100 miles. A second handler approaches, holding a flask of salted water. He offers it to your handler, who wets a small cloth and wipes down your nose, likely dusty from yesterday's travel. The rinse is refreshing, a quick spa treatment in the heart of the Sahara. You savor the cool moisture as it trickles down your face, reminding you how little actual water most travelers carried. Camels were called ships of the desert because you could go days without drinking, but that doesn't mean you don't appreciate a brief splash. Curiously, some desert nomads would collect small desert snails, grind them into a powder, and rub a pinch into leather straps to prevent insect bites on the animal's skin. It sounds eccentric, but camel entomology was a serious matter. Biting flies could cause infections, and any infection meant slowed travel. Archaeologists still debate the validity of snail powder, with some experiments suggesting it worked, and others considering it mythic lore. Now fully saddled and pampered by pre-departure rituals, you shift your weight. The leathery load feels balanced, and your legs stand firm. Your chest expands with a proud breath. You're ready. A caravan leader raises a staff topped with carved ivory, signaling that it's time to go. The handlers nod in unison. The sound of many hooves echoes as other camels prepare. You take your first step, hooves settling into warm sand, panniers swaying gently. Each stride is deliberate, measured, a soft thud, soft thud. Your journey is about to begin, and with every leather strap tightened and every salted stitch sealed, you know your life as a postal camel in the Mali Empire is more secure and more extraordinary than you ever imagined. Soon the caravan's rhythm will guide you across dunes and valleys. But for now, you savor this moment of preparation, calm before the great expanse. Because even an empire-spanning postal route starts with one secure strap and a single, confident step. You step deliberately into the golden expanse, each hoof sinking into warm, fine-grained sand that shifts beneath you like the slow breathing of the earth. The horizon ripples with dunes, wave upon wave of sunlit hills stretching toward infinity. Your panniers sway with a gentle arc, whispering against each other in a soft, leathery murmur that feels oddly comforting. It's as if the desert itself is applauding your first steps. Historically, the Sahara's dunes formed over thousands of years, carried by prevailing northeasterly winds that sculpted the sand into ever-shifting ridges. You're traversing one of the most dynamic sand seas on the planet, where dunes can migrate up to 30 meters in a single year. It's thought that nomadic maps mark these dunes like living landmarks, but historians still debate whether those markers were practical guides or spiritual boundaries. Your legs move in a steady 4-beat rhythm: front left, back left, front, right, back right. With every step, the leather straps on your saddle settle anew, grinding against your fur like a gentle reminder that you're not just a beast of burden, you're the Empire's postal highway. The rhythmic sounds of your hooves hitting sand create a natural ASMR track. There's something hypnotic about it. Thud, 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 thud. A light breeze stirs grains of sand into playful twirls around your legs, creating miniature dust devils that cluster at your knees before dissipating. The handlers walk in step alongside, their footsteps light and precise. You sense their presence more than see it. Shadows moving at the edge of your vision, soft clicks of spurs on leather, the murmur of distant conversations in Mandinka and Soninka. You inhale deeply. The air tastes of warmth and earth, carrying faint hints of acacia blossoms crushed underfoot by passing caravans. A playful thought crosses your mind. This is like walking on a giant's beach, except the beach never ends, and the giant is eternally indifferent. You snort softly, which sounds like a polite camel chuckle to your companions. As the sun climbs higher, heat waves shimmer off the dune crests, painting the air with mirages of distant oases and ghostly palm groves. In the distance, you glimpse a solitary termite mound towering like a stony spire, nature's skyscraper in the middle of nowhere. Nomads often use these mounds as waypoints, since they remain fixed while the dunes drift. Some scholars argue that these mounds also held religious significance, but evidence is inconclusive. Your muscles engage in a calibrated dance, flexing and releasing, absorbing every tremor of the undulating terrain. You feel the gentle burn in your haunches like a slow, satisfying stretch after a long rest. It reminds you of the time a camel once tried to tango with a sand dune and ended up with a mouthful of grit. Lesson learned: never challenge a dune to a dance-off. The handlers carry slender wooden poles with cloth pennants tied at one end. These pennants flutter in the breeze, marking your caravan's trail for any stragglers. Without them, lost camels might wander for days before rejoining. A marginally eccentric fact: some 14th century Mali caravans are said to have trained homing pigeons to fly ahead and scout water sources, though bird migration experts still argue whether pigeons could navigate such vast, shifting landscapes. Ahead lies your first hurdle, a dune so large it appears to swallow the horizon. You feel its heat radiating through the sand, warming your belly even beneath your panniers. Climbers say that cresting such dunes reveals a view so expansive it makes you feel both immense and infinitesimal at once. You approach, planting each hoof firmly, pushing your strength to coax you upward. The slope is steep, but your tendons and muscles know their purpose, carrying the Empire's messages. Halfway up, you pause. The handlers take the moment to water you, pouring a few precious liters into a trough fashioned from hollowed gourd. The water is cold, tasting of date residues and something mineral-rich that tingles on your tongue. You lap it gratefully, savoring each gulp. Hydration is critical here. Camels can survive days without water, but few would choose to. Standing at the crest, you gaze out across the rippling sea of dunes. The sun glints off the silky sand, and the handlers stand beside you, silhouettes against the brilliance. There is a serene hush, punctuated only by the quiet scratch of leather and the distant call of a lone desert lark, an adapted relative of the skylark found in Europe, though debates continue around how these birds first reached the Sahara. You descend with slow, measured steps, each hoof finding purchase in the shifting sand. Down below you hear the soft rustle of the panniers and the handlers' quiet chatter. The letters inside might contain invitations to feasts in Timbuktu, missives about gold shipments, or secret notes warning of approaching storms. In carrying these messages, you've become the beating heart of communication, an essential thread in the empire's tapestry. Your stride carries you across the base of the dune, and you notice small clumps of imperceptible life, scattered patches of desert, grasses and tiny hardy succulents poking through. These fragile plants stabilize the sand, preventing erosion. Some locals chew their roots for moisture, though most travelers consider that an eccentric last resort. With the dune behind you, the trail continues toward a shallow valley known for sudden fierce gusts called simoons, sandstorms that can strip flesh from bone. You sense this valley approaching as the wind picks up, carrying fine dust across your nose and into your eyes until you reluctantly blink it away. The handlers wrap cloths around their faces, but you have your natural filtration, those protective lashes and thick eyebrows designed by evolution. You march onward, the sun now fully overhead, sand glinting like a million tiny mirrors. The handlers adjust the padding under your panniers to reduce any chafing. A brief flash of humor crosses your mind. If only camels had Instagram, you'd be camel couture today, rocking the latest in desert chic leather accessories. As you traversed the sprawling golden ridges, each step carries you further from the camp where you began and deeper into the heart of the Mali Empire's lifeblood, the trading arteries connecting north and south. Ahead, you know, lie distant villages where blacksmiths forge ornate fastenings for saddles and weavers craft the vibrant cloth wrapping your precious parcels. You inhale once more, tasting the freshness of heat and sand. The desert may seem empty, but it brims with life. Dune-dwelling lizards, night-flying moths, and the resilient desert date palms standing sentinel in remote wadis. You carry on, each hoofbeat echoing a timeless rhythm, a gentle promise that these messages will reach their destinations. In this grand caravan passage, you find purpose in every stride, an unspoken oath between you and the vast shifting sands. And with each measured step, the desert acknowledges your presence, welcoming you as both traveler and guardian of the Empire's secrets. You crest the final dune, and, like a mirage made real, an oasis shimmers into view. Palm trees clustered around a turquoise pool that sparkles under the blazing sun. Your heart, or whatever part of a camel's anatomy feels akin to a heart, leaps at the sight of water. The handlers exchange relieved glances and quicken their pace, their footsteps stirring spirals of sand as they guide you down into the shaded grove. The air here is a different kind of warm, soft, humid, tinged with green life rather than the dry, arid heat of open desert. As you lower your head, you see the crystalline surface of the pool dotted with occasional ripples where a fish or dragonfly disturbs the stillness. The water is clear enough to see your reflection, a proud camel, panniers swaying, nostrils flaring. It's almost like high definition, except you know you're probably the only camel in Mali sporting medieval messenger gear. One handler kneels at the water's edge, scooping cool liquid into a shallow wooden trough designed just for camels. Your long, flexible lips sweep in easily, guiding the water to your mouth. You siren song gulp until your throat swells with relief. The water tastes faintly of date nectar, most likely filtered through the palm roots, enriching it with a subtle sweetness. Camel biology allows you to drink up to 40 gallons in one go, but you pace yourself, relishing every gulp. You feel the chill spreading down your throat, cooling those muscles that have worked tirelessly beneath leather and tape. Behind you, the grove rustles. A small colony of desert ibises spreads slender wings and flits between fronds, while the handlers rest, offering each other mint tea poured from a battered kettle. You watch them sip, seeing steam curl from their cups like miniature desert storms. It's curious. Humans will stand under the sun for hours, brewing leaves in boiling water, while you drink straight from nature's fountain. Next, you're led to a date palm laden with fruit, golden orbs hanging in dense clusters. The handlers instruct you to place 1 foot on a low-hanging root to steady yourself as they pick the dates. The fruit is warm from the sun, its skin yielding under gentle pressure. You accept the first date with your lips, letting the handlers place it directly in your mouth. The flesh is soft, sticky, and intensely sweet, like concentrated sunlight wrapped in sugar. It's a centuries-old snack famed across the trans-Saharan routes. Traders often call dates desert diamonds for their energy-boosting properties and remarkable shelf life. Historically, oases like this have been critical pit stops along caravan routes, spaced roughly a day's journey apart. Without them, the Sahara would be an unbroken barrier. Some oases were well-known trading hubs where salt blocks, gold dust, and cloth were exchanged alongside water and fruit. Scholars still debate how oasis control influenced the rise of empires like Mali, whether rulers taxed water access or simply provided safe passage. You're not paying attention to such debates. You're far more interested in another handful of dates. As you munch, you notice small lizards perched on the palm trunks catching insects. The grove's underbrush supports desert grasses that trap moisture, stabilizing the sand and preventing the dune tide from swallowing the pool. A handler explains, though you don't understand the language fully, that local herbalists harvest those grasses to treat camel hoof infections. It's a marginally eccentric practice, but when your hooves are literally your ticket to the empire's communication network, prevention is worth a handful of grass. You finish your dates and lower your head for another drink. The handlers smile, patting your muscular neck. One of them gently removes a few morning sesame seeds stuck to your fur, gifts from last night's campfire meal. You snort playfully, dispersing a tiny cloud of dust particles that glint in the oasis rays. Nearby, a small wooden platform stands, built centuries ago by Berber traders to wrest goods off the hot sand. A parchment map, secured beneath a stone, marks the next leg of your journey, a track toward Gao, winding past rocky escarpments and salt pans. Salt pans glisten like mineral mirrors beyond the grove, reminding you that your next cargo won't be letters, but blocks of rock salt destined to feed towns hundreds of miles away. It's said that salt was once as valuable as gold in these parts, a nod to the phrase, worth your salt, though historians still debate the exact trade values. The handlers load a fresh gourd flask of water into one pannier and replace your empty date sack with a small cloth bundle of millet cakes. These cakes are hard and dry, but crumbled into a soft mush when soaked in water. They'll sustain you until the next oasis, a micro meal built for endurance. You eye the millet and accept. A taste, gritty, nutty, but filling. Caravanners joke that millet cakes are camel coffee for their ability to keep you moving long after the sugar from dates has faded. Before departing, the handlers tie a length of cloth around your neck, dyed with indigo from Gao. The colour is deep as twilight, a local specialty once reserved for royalty. You stand motionless as they adjust it, understanding that wearing the indigo token signals respect to those who control the next water sources. Some scholars argue these tokens served as early passports across tribal borders, but no camel study has yet confirmed. With final sips and satisfied bellies, you lift your gaze, the oasis stretching behind you in a green-tinted halo. The handlers gather their gear, the kettle, the wooden trough, the map, and settle back into position around you. Their murmurs in Soninka fill the air as they coordinate the next departure. You lower your head, muscles warming as you prepare to move once more. One handler taps you gently with a small wooden stick, a signal that the oasis has been fully exploited, and the next leg beckons. You rise, paws firmly planted on the moss-fringed sand, mane catching the morning light. As you plod away from the oasis, you take a final glance over your shoulder. The palms and water recede but leave an echo in your senses, a memory of cool shade, sweet fruit, and life thriving against the odds. The desert welcomes you again, but now you carry that oasis's calm inside you, a reservoir to tap on the journey ahead. With each steady step, you carry both messages and memories, a living bridge between parched sands and distant kingdoms. You press on from the oasis, sand shifting beneath your hooves as the handlers fall into a hushed rhythm. Your panniers, once heavy with water and dates, now feel lighter, but they're anything but empty. Inside, nestled among bundles of gold dust, receipts and trade invoices lie letters sealed with coloured wax. Each missive carries political orders, commercial contracts, or personal news, and you, a humble postal camel, are their trusted guardian. The handlers talk in low tones as they tighten the straps, ensuring nothing slips or rustles. A noise here could attract thieves or rival caravans. Caravans in the 14th century Mali Empire were vital lifelines, connecting cities like Timbuktu, Gao, and Walata. Mansa Musa's pilgrimage in 1324 famously showcased a caravan so vast it stretched for miles, some say 60,000 men and 100 camels laden with gold. Historians still debate whether those numbers are accurate or hyperbole, but there's no question that postal camels, like you, formed the backbone of imperial communication. You're part of a system that predates highways and telegraphs, an organic network of fur, hoof, and human trust. As the sun climbs skyward, the handlers lean in, whispering in Soninka and Mandinka, languages you don't fully comprehend, but you sense urgency. They speak of coded cipher scrolls hidden in reed cylinders, intended for the governor of Gao, of diplomatic letters for the Sultan of Tunis, routed through desert intermediaries, and of a secret note warning of an approaching dust storm capable of obliterating an entire caravan. You recall learning long ago that salt and grain were the usual cargo, valuable but hardly dangerous. These letters, however, carry weight beyond gold, power, betrayal, and hope. Your stride remains steady, but your senses heighten. Every breeze could carry whispers of plunderers, every shadow might conceal desert thieves known as BZBB, bandits who specialized in camel pilfering. Eccentric caravan lore tells of one rogue named the Sand Falcon, who allegedly rode alongside unsuspecting caravans at night, pilfering letters mid-transit and vanishing amid swirling dunes. Some say he wore a mask of woven palm fronds. Others think he was merely a myth born of paranoia. Anthropologists still argue whether the sand falcon ever existed or served as a warning to caravans to stay vigilant. Your hump's sway keeps pace with your handler's cautious steps. They check the leather flaps, ensuring each wax seal remains unbroken. You remember the first time a handler entrusted you with a secret letter, a glossy parchment sealed with emerald wax, addressed to a noble in Timbuktu. It felt heavy, as though the very words inside weighed on your spine. Now, after countless journeys, you carry secrets with the same nonchalance as a picnic blanket. But would you? Could you? The handlers would never suspect you of treason, yet you bear the silent burden of empires. A faint breeze shifts the dunes, carrying the distant echo of drums from a village tucked beyond the next ridge. Perhaps they're celebrating a harvest or marking the arrival of another caravan. You're not sure, but the handlers perk up, exchanging nods. Some camel drivers believe that the drumbeat served as audio waypoints, guiding travelers through the desert's monotony. Whether practical or spiritual, these rhythms offer comfort, the knowledge that life continues even in the vast emptiness. Midway across a plateau of compacted sand, you pause at a stone marker, a lone slab, standing sentinel. Caravans use these markers to denote distances or tribal boundaries. This one bears a faded carving, 3 concentric circles with an arrow pointing east. The handler translates for you, quietly explaining that you've passed the territory of the Tuareg tribes and are entering lands controlled by the Songhai. Control here shifts with politics, marriage alliances, and sometimes armed conflict. Historians still debate whether these stone markers originated with pre-Islamic empires or were introduced by Moorish traders crossing the desert centuries earlier. Your nostrils flare as the wind shifts again, carrying the scent of earth and distant fires. The handlers glance around, hands drifting to slender scimitars strapped at their waists. Though primarily peaceful traders, they're prepared to defend their precious cargo. A stray note here could ignite wars or undermine alliances. So, you carry your letters with the solemnity of a priest safeguarding sacred relics. As the sun reaches its zenith, you feel the couch hidden beneath your panniers, a cloth pouch containing powdered shea butter and crushed millet. Handlers sometimes apply the shea mixture to your joints, easing friction from long marches. It smells earthy, with a faint nuttiness like raw walnut. You don't mind the sensation, it soothes the heated skin under the straps. It's an eccentric tradition. Only in Mali would people rub nut paste on camels and call it luxury. Veterinary historians still wonder whether shea butter's antibacterial properties were known or accidental discoveries by early herders. A handler unwraps a small reed cylinder tied with red thread. It contains a diplomatic message coated in a thin layer of cedar oil to repel moisture and insects. The handler slips it into a hidden pocket beneath the pannier, an extra precaution against theft. You sense the care in their touch, the way they shield that cylinder from prying eyes. As you resume your journey, you imagine the governor of Gao receiving that scroll, poring over words that might decide the fate of trading routes or peace treaties. Your path leads through a narrow valley where towering rock walls converge like bookends. Echoes bounce off the stones, turning every hoofbeat into distant thunder. The handlers lean in, lowering their voices further. Some caravans avoid such valleys, fearing ambush, but your route requires this shortcut. You recall reading that the emperor's postal camels had to follow the most direct paths, even if perilous. Speed was paramount. Historians still debate whether the Mali postal system prioritized security or speed, but here you see the balance. Struck by your handlers, swift enough to outrun rivals, cautious enough to avoid bandits. As you emerge from the valley, the landscape opens onto a sprawling plain dotted with small acacia thickets. Your handlers spread out in a protective semicircle, scanning the horizon. There, half buried in sand, you spot a lone messenger's staff, an insignia of the Royal Postal Network. It signals that you're nearing an imperial relay station, where fresh camels await to take your letters onward. You feel a thrill, as though reaching a checkpoint in a grand race. When you step onto the station's sandy courtyard, gates creak open, and rival handlers greet yours with curt nods. They inspect your panniers, checking seals and verifying wax colors. You stand tall, nostrils flaring, as they transfer your letters into new satchels. It's a fluid exchange. Your legwork is done, and fresh legs will now carry the Empire's correspondence toward distant courts. As the new handlers fasten their straps, your old team pats your neck, murmuring fond farewells. You snort softly, accepting a final handful of crushed acacia pods as parting gifts. In a ritual as old as the trade routes, they braid a lock of your fur into their turbans, a token of good fortune on their return journey. You feel a surge of warmth despite the blazing sun. Released at the station, you plod back toward a corral where water troughs await. The journey to Timbuktu continues for others, but for you, a short rest beckons. You drink deeply, savoring the cool oasis of the relay station. Nearby, the new handlers lead you to a shaded pen where date palm fronds rustle overhead. You settle down, each hoof digging gently into the sand, content that you've guarded the caravan's secrets well. Even as you rest, the Empire's pulse continues around you. Couriers arriving, letters dispatched, gold weighed and recorded. In this moment, you're both observer and participant, a silent custodian of whispers and covenant. And as you close your eyes under the swaying palms, you know that guarding secrets was never just a duty, it was an honor threaded into the very fabric of Mali's greatness. You wake in the relay station's corral as the sun climbs its midday throne, turning the sky a blinding pale blue. Camels around you shift, stamping to shake away restless flies. Your own body hums with residual energy, though the heat already presses like a heavy blanket. The handlers untie your fur tassel markers, carefully brush away stray sand, and guide you to a trough for water. Each sip feels miraculous, as if the spring itself is blessing your tired muscles. The relay station is alive with murmurs. Men in flowing robes fan themselves with woven mats, speaking of Mansa Musa's entourage, legendary tales that shivered through the empire like wind through reeds. You overhear a conversation. Some claim the emperor's next pilgrimage will outshine his 1324 journey, with 200 camels per trader and caravans stretching beyond the horizon. Others scoff at such hyperbole. Historians still debate whether Mali's wealth truly peaked under Musa, or if later chroniclers romanticized his reign to highlight West Africa's glory. You notice a group of traders handling bright cloth and gold dust sacks, their laughter a brief respite from the heat. A handler whispers to you a lesson about the royal emissary who once sent a message hidden in a hollowed date, an eccentric ruse to evade bandits. That tale seems as sticky as the fruit itself, and yet it endures. After a brisk pour of water from your favorite brass ewer, you're led back into the sun. You step onto the packed sand, each hooffall a soft thump that competes with distant drums echoing from a shaded courtyard. These rhythms, carried by gusts, remind you of nighttime campfires where stories blend with smoke and embers. You resume your path, the panniers lightly tapping your sides. The desert stretches ahead, a mosaic of rippled dunes and hardened flats. You pass occasional termite mounds and scattered stones inscribed with travel directions. Some caravans used stone cairns, stacked by degree of difficulty rather than distance, placing more stones atop a pile to signal tough terrain ahead. Scholars remain divided on whether this was practical signage or a means to honor desert spirits. Noon heat brings mirages, glittering pools that evaporate before you reach them, phantom palm groves teasing your mind. You plod onward, harnessed to destiny, carrying not just letters but the weight of whispered legends and overheard gossip. Ahead lies a narrow pass, etched into rocky hills. The handlers tighten your girth strap, and you enter the aperture, cool shade briefly replacing the sun's intensity. Carved niches in the rock reveal ancient petroglyphs, camel caravans, human figures raising hands, skyward, celestial symbols. Archaeologists still debate whether these carvings were pilgrimage markers, ritual sites, or simple graffiti by bored travelers. You pause to inspect a faint drawing. Two camels laden with goods, followed by slender human silhouettes. Your handler translates, smiling. Our ancestors spoke through stone. You snort in acknowledgement, hoof drawing a shallow groove in the sand. The pass opens onto a broad plain where you can see your next waypoint, a cluster of huts surrounded by thorny hedges, a seasonal village of salt miners and grain growers. From there, the route turns north toward Gao, avoiding treacherous salt flats that can entrap unaware hooves in collapsing crusts. As you continue across this plain, the handlers share snippets of new gossip. A rumor that a rival caravan from the Songhai Empire will attempt to outpace your postal network. The idea of camel races carrying diplomatic messages brings a faint chuckle to your throat, though you dare not show too much amusement under the scorching sky. Historians argue whether such rivalries were friendly competitions or precursors to conflict. In any case, the idea of speed stirs your spirit. You flex your legs, anticipating the next stage. Midday heat be damned. You're a postal camel, bred for endurance, sworn to deliver every word intact. As the sun begins its descent toward afternoon, you approach the palm-fringed cluster. The handlers secure your load, ensuring each bale is snug. They offer you a handful of millet cakes, crushed into a powder mixed with mild goat milk, a pasty supplement known to provide steady energy spikes. You chew contentedly, feeling stamina surge through your limbs. With renewed vigor, you step onward. The heat remains oppressive, but your mind dances with whispered legends of envoys, hidden scrolls, and the Empire's future. Each legend you carry propels you forward, a reminder that your journey is more than supply and demand. It's a thread woven into Mali's grand tapestry. You trudge onward into what feels like an ocean of sand, a sea without water where every grain slides beneath your hooves. The handlers fall into a steady cadence beside you, their feet whispering secrets into the dunes. Ahead, the sandy expanse undulates like waves frozen in time, each crest hiding the next trough. You understand that crossing this terrain demands both strength and keen navigation. One misstep, and you could find yourself buried mid-stride. Caravans historically relied on experienced camel drivers, Azris, to read the desert's subtle cues. They watched how the sand rippled around termite mounds, noted small tufts of grass that indicated moisture beneath the surface, and paid close attention to wind patterns carved into each dune's leeward side. Scholars still debate whether some Azris memorize the desert's fingerprints, like living maps, but there's no questioning their expertise. Today, your handlers embody that knowledge as they guide you. You crest a steep dune, muscles contracting and releasing, adapting to the shifting slope. The wind presses against you, bending your fur and sending tiny whirlwinds skittering across. The sand, Each hoof sinks a bit deeper than the last, and you feel the tug of gravity as if the earth himself is trying to hold you back. But camels are born for this struggle. Your wide, padded feet distribute weight to prevent sinking, and your tendons flex to conserve energy over long stretches. A handler reaches down to adjust the padding beneath your saddle. He mumbles something in Soninke, probably a familiar reassurance. "Steady, my friend, steady." His touch is gentle, yet firm enough to remind you to keep your balance. Suddenly, a gust of wind erupts from the north, sending sand cascading. Down the dunes slope in a mini landslide. The handlers brace themselves, pressing their bodies against your sides to shield you. You snort, sending a plume of dust into the air, and press forward, trusting their guidance. As you descend the dune, you notice a tiny wadi, a dry stream bed, cut into the landscape like a hidden passage. Handlers often prefer these wadis because the compacted sand provides firmer footing than loose dunes. You follow their lead, each hoof fall more stable, each step less taxing. You're aware of the irony. Even in a sea of sand, the shallowest trough can feel like solid ground. Mid-afternoon light stretches your shadow long behind you. You pause at the edge of the wadi, lifting your head to scan the horizon. Far off, another dune crest shimmers like a sapphire wave. Between you and it lies a stretch of mega-region known for shifting sand so fluid that even camels sometimes sink too deeply to escape. Handlers here place small bundles of dry reeds as makeshift steps, tied together to create a lattice that disperses weight. It's an ingenious technique. Some salt traders call those reed mats the spider's web because they catch you where you might otherwise sink. Your handlers uncover a roll of woven reed, lighter than it appears, and begin laying strips across the sand. Each strip is secured with short wooden stakes, forming a crisscross path. You step onto the first segment, and the reeds hold firm. The sensation is odd under your feet, stable yet slightly springy. Moving carefully, you follow the pattern, each hooffall cushioned by the interwoven reeds rather than swallowed by loose grains. Halfway across, you sense a soft vibration, a low rumble underfoot. Earth shifts imperceptibly as the wind rearranges the sand around you. You steady yourself, muscles cooperating in a silent ballet of balance. The reeds creak ever so slightly, but they hold. Handlers guide you with gentle tugs on your reins, encouraging you forward until you've cleared the hazard. You pause at the other side, inhaling deeply. The air tastes of heat and sand, but also of triumph. You lift a hoof and shake off stray grains before pressing onward. The handlers collect the stakes and roll up the reed mats, tucking them into your empty date sack. They croon softly, praising your sure-footedness. You respond with a contented hum, an internal vibration only other camels could appreciate. As the sun lowers, windows of opportunity appear between dunes where wind-sculpted hollows collect moisture and sparse vegetation. Your handlers lead you to one such hollow where a dusty patch of pale grasses sways gently. They invite you to graze, spreading the strands between your teeth. You chew thoughtfully. The grasses are tough but offer a welcome crunch and a hint of moisture. Grazing here is a cautious affair. Too much consumption could leave you encumbered, but too little means hunger on the next leg. You rest for a moment, head lowered, observing the endless sand chorus before you. There's a meditative quality to this landscape. Every shift, every breath of wind, every microscopic sandstorm is part of an eternal desert symphony. You feel connected to generations of camels and handlers who traversed these dunes long before. You each step a note in a vast desert score. After your brief reprieve, you rise, shoulders sloping forward as your handlers signal readiness. Panniers shift slightly, prompting straps to settle. You resume the trek, the dunes rolling ahead like silent waves. Each stride through these shifting sands is a collaboration between beast and human, navigating ephemeral landmarks with skill. Born of tradition and necessity, as twilight approaches, the desert cools rapidly. The handlers wrap cloths around your head to shield your eyes from blowing grit. The wind changes course, carving fresh ripples into the dunes, fresh tracks to follow or avoid. You find solace in their expertise, trusting them to guide you safely until camp. With each labored but determined step, you prove once more why camels are called the ships of the desert, designed to carry messages and burdens across the most forbidding waves, resilient in the face of ever-moving sand. And as dusk settles, painting the dunes in shades of rose and lavender, you know that the shifting sands may challenge you, but they will never defeat you. You walk onward, steadfast and sure, a silent caravan ship cutting through the shifting desert sea. You trudge onward as the sun sinks lower, casting elongated shadows across the dunes. Suddenly silhouettes appear on the horizon, tall figures atop camels, clothed head to toe in indigo robes and flowing veils. It's a Tuareg caravan, a tribe of nomadic guides renowned as the Blue Men of the Desert for their clever use of indigo-dyed cloth. The handlers pause, exchanging respectful nods with the Tuareg riders as they glide closer, camels moving with elegant ease. The Tuareg are more than traders. They are master navigators of the Sahara, their people having traversed these sands for generations. Historically, they served as guides and intermediaries between West African kingdoms and North African markets. They speak Tamashek, an ancient language written in Tifinagh script, and are famous for maintaining written diaries etched into their palm leaves. Scholars still debate how Tuareg knowledge shaped trans-Saharan trade routes, whether they merely followed established paths or actively mapped new ones. As the two groups converge, the handlers greet each other in a blend of Soninke, Arabic, and Tamashek. You sense a shift in energy. The air hums with mutual respect and cautious curiosity. One Tuareg rider steps forward, reaching into a satchel to retrieve a small clay flask. He offers a sip of mint-infused water, an oasis of flavor amid the arid plains. Your handler dips a cloth into the flask and pats your muzzle with the cool liquid. You savor the sensation, feeling mint's sharp freshness clear the dust from your nostrils. A slender Tuareg woman, her eyes gleaming behind dark veils, kneels beside you and speaks a soft tone, perhaps murmuring admiration for your strength. She runs her hand along your flank, marveling at the sturdy musculature that supports your burdens. It feels akin to a blessing, as if she's anointing you with the tribe's ancestral approval. The Tuareg riders exchange news that a salt caravan passed here 2 days ago, that the next watering hole lies beyond the red dunes, and that the air carries whispers of a looming sandstorm. One elder raises his hand to point eastward, his finger tracing an invisible line through the dunes. Historians argue whether such gestures were practical directions or part of a ritual communication, but you appreciate the clarity in his movement. Your handlers offer in return a pouch of millet cakes and a handful of crushed acacia pods, trade goods that delight the Tuareg. The riders examine the millet, commenting on its texture, before tucking some into their saddlebags. In exchange, they present your handlers with small bundles of aromatic desert sage, prized for its medicinal properties. The gesture feels ceremonial, an exchange of hospitality among those who share this harsh land. As the two caravans prepare to part ways, a young Tuareg boy climbs down from his camel to inspect your panniers. He peers at the colored wax seals, marveling at their precise application. He taps one gently, testing its hardness. You remain perfectly still, accustomed to scrutiny. The boy smiles and draws a small symbol in the sand, a crescent moon entwined, with a camel's hoofprint, then traces it with a finger, leaving behind a simple sand painting. Handlers translate. It's a sign of safe passage, a nomadic benediction. The elder performs a final ritual. He raises his palm to his lips, then to the sky, and lightly touches your forehead. It's a blessing, invoking the desert spirits. Tourist, Nakal, who guardians believe grant protection across the waste. You feel a gentle reassurance, as if the vast silence itself nods in approval. With that, the Tuareg riders remount, their camels rising seamlessly. They form a line, the riders leaning forward, veils billowing like sails. Then, with barely a whisper of movement, they vanish into the dunes, leaving your handlers and you with the memory of their passing. You lift your head, nostrils flaring at the cooling breeze. The sand beneath your feet feels firmer, as if the Tuareg blessing has given you steadier footing. Your handlers adjust your reins, murmuring gratitude for the guide's assistance. As you resume your course, the world seems alight with possibility. The sky above deepens to violet, and the first stars appear. Venus winking above the horizon, just as the nomads predicted. Constellations guide you now, each one a celestial waypoint mapping the caravan's path. You walk on, proud and resolute, carrying letters and goods across the shifting Sahara. In that twilight hour, you feel connected not only to your handlers but to all who traverse these sands, ancient Tuareg, Berber traders, and the countless camels who came before. The desert's expanse extends infinitely, but in that moment, you know you're guided by knowledge older than empires, blessed by nomadic wisdom, and destined to carry on the road, steadfast as the stars above. You arrive at the evening's campsite just as the sky shifts from violet to indigo, the sun's last warmth lingering in the air. The handlers guide you into a small clearing ringed by acacia trees. They brush loose sand from your legs and position you near a flickering campfire, its embers glowing like molten gold against the darkening dunes. You settle down on your haunches, the leather straps of your panniers softly creaking as you shift. A hush falls over the handlers as they prepare for nightly rituals. A handler kneels beside you and offers a small, charred millet cake. You accept it with your lips, letting the sweet, smoky flavor dissolve on your tongue. Millet cakes were a staple of trans-Saharan caravans. Their high caloric content and long shelf life made them indispensable fuel for both camel and human alike. Historians note that medieval Malian traders often referred to millet cakes in caravan logs, praising their reliability more than any other food source. Around the fire, wooden skewers are threaded with strips of dried goat meat, turning into delicate shreds under the heat. The handlers rotate them slowly, their eyes reflecting the flames as they hum a low tune in Soninka. The melody is hypnotic, a soft staccato pattern that echoes the rhythm of your own hoofbeats across the dunes. Each hum seems to carry the echo of countless caravans before you, a living bridge to centuries of desert passage. As you chew, the air carries more than food aromas. Someone lights a small incense burner filled with desert sage and frankincense resin. The smoke curls upward in delicate spirals, its scent both cleansing and sacred. In medieval Mali, incense was used not only to ward off insects, but also to mark significant gatherings. Some scholars argue that certain incense blends were unique to specific tribes, serving as olfactory signatures marking territories and caravan identities. Others believe the variations arose simply from local availability of plants and resins. The handlers form a circle around the fire, and one produces a small wooden drum, an instrument carved from termite, hill, clay, and goat skin. He taps it gently, a warm, resonant beat that complements the hums. Another handler replies with a slender flute fashioned from reed, its tone plaintive and clear. This spontaneous ensemble is neither rehearsed nor written. It flows from tradition, passed down orally through families. Anthropologists still debate how precise these musical traditions remained over centuries, given the lack of written notation, but the consistency in melodies suggests a powerful oral lineage. You listen as stories unfold. The drum slows and a handler begins reciting in a soft voice the legend of the first caravan master who tamed a wild camel so clever it navigated the desert without guidance. According to lore, this camel could sense hidden water sources miles away and saved a trader's life by refusing to proceed until it reached safety. Though the tale likely sprouted from exaggerated campfire storytelling, evidence exists of early travelers praising exceptional camels in Mande oral histories. Historians still examine whether any written accounts recorded such individual feats, or if they remain purely in the realm of legend. The handlers laugh softly as the story reaches its climax. A goat, not camel, performs a last-minute rescue, tripping the would-be thief and saving the caravan's gold. You snort in amusement, stirring a swirl of dust. The handlers share knowing smiles. Camel humor is a niche but cherished tradition among desert nomads. Post-story, they pass around small gourds filled with sour milk, no-no, and invite you to taste by dipping a cloth and brushing it on your tongue. The tang is sharp but refreshing. After smoky millet and charred meat, camel milk was highly prized in the Sahel. Its richness and slight saltiness provided both hydration and nourishment. In some regions, it was even aged into curds for easier transport, a practice whose origins are still debated by food historians. Night deepens, and the handlers begin a call and response chant in Arabic mixed with local dialects praising Allah for safe travels and the protective spirits of the desert. Each response carries a heartfelt Alhamdulillah, a tradition reflecting the Mali Empire's deep Islamic roots since the 13th century. While mosques in Timbuktu and Gao thrived as centers of learning, these desert rituals reveal how faith permeated daily caravan life, weaving religion and survival into a single tapestry. The handlers then unroll small mats and rest beside you, leaning their heads against the saddlebags. One murmurs a gentle lullaby in Soninke, a soft, sing-song ode to desert dawns and oasis harbors. The melody flows like water, soothing your muscles and stilling your mind. You dip your head respectfully, acknowledging their care. Above, the Milky Way stretches across the sky, a silvery ribbon guiding travelers who relied on stars for navigation. Camel drivers recognized constellations like the Camel's Hump and used them to maintain direction. Some scholars argue the identification of these star patterns was standardized across caravan routes, while others see regional variations in celestial interpretations. Either way, the night sky offers a silent roadmap as vital as any reed mat. As the lullaby ends, the handlers integrate a quiet prayer for those still en route, voices low and reverent. You feel the weight of their hopes settle around you, mingling with the cool desert air. The fire dwindles to glowing embers, its crackles echoing like distant thunder. A soft breeze rustles oasis leaves beyond the dunes, a gentle reminder that life persists even in harsh environs. You close your eyes, each breath syncing with the handler's steady exhalations. The rhythmic drumbeat and flute have faded, leaving only the faint hum of tongues against teeth. A handler softly strokes your mane, whispering thanks for your steadfast service. You drift towards sleep, cocooned by embers, sage smoke, and the timeless pulse of the desert's heartbeat. You awaken to a cool breeze rustling through the acacia grove, the sky above a tapestry of stars so bright it feels as though you could almost reach out and pluck one from the heavens. Your handlers stir beside you, gathering their mats and quietly preparing for the next leg, a moonlit journey to Gao. You rise, hooves pressing into the sand-dusted earth, and feel a serene calm, one that only the desert at night can provide. As you step away from the camp, the handlers drape soft cloths over your eyes to shield you from errant lantern glow, ensuring your night vision remains sharp. Camel drivers historically time departures with lunar cycles. A full moon could illuminate the dunes like silver waves, reducing the need for torches or flares. Historians still debate whether caravans deliberately synchronized their routes with lunar calendars, or if such timing arose organically from travelers' comfort with moonlit navigation. Your first steps on the cool sand register as soft thud in the quiet night. Each hoof fall raises a faint puff of dust that glitters briefly in the moonlight before settling back to earth. The handlers fall into a rhythmic chant in Soninka, a melodic, low-voiced cadence meant to keep you steady and calm. It sounds like a lullaby for beasts of burden, and you hum along in your camel way, an internal vibration resonating through your chest. Above, the sky is clear, revealing the Milky Way's band of light arcing from horizon to horizon. Experienced camel drivers used constellations like the Camel's Hump and the River of Stars to maintain direction. An eccentric star chart from the period, etched onto a clay tablet found near Gao, shows constellations named after desert flora and fauna. Yet scholars still dispute whether these celestial maps were widely used or simply local curiosities. Ahead lies a narrow path through a flat expanse called the sandy basin of sorghum, named for the wild grasses that grow there. Even in the moon's glow, the basin is vast, its dunes stretching like pale ghosts. You navigate carefully, your padded feet distributing your weight so you don't sink too deeply. The handlers guide you with whispered directions, pointing at the ground. "Here's firmer footing," they murmur. "Step lightly." You trust their expertise. These paths were first blazed by Berber traders and later adopted by Malian caravans. A distant call, half owl, half distant horn, echoes across the basin. Your ears perk. The handlers reassure you it's the horn of a night guard from a nearby settlement, signifying safety. In medieval Mali, outlying farms and villages maintained night watches, their signals audible for miles. The horn's tone indicates that the settlement below guards a reliable well and welcomes passing caravans. Anthropologists still discuss whether these signals formed an informal Nigerian postal service of their own, an interlinked network of watches and warnings. As you travel, you feel the Sahara's nocturnal life stirring. Scorpions emerge, their slender silhouettes darting across the sand. Small rodents scuttle under tufts of grass, and geckos cling to cool rocks waiting for insects drawn by the lanterns. Despite this activity, the night remains tranquil. Nocturnal predators keep a cautious distance from camels and humans alike. Midway through the basin, the handlers pause at a shaded outcrop of sedimentary rock, one retrieves a small bowl of fermented sorghum beer, dolo, brewed earlier that day. They offer you a sip by wetting a cloth and brushing it across your tongue. The tangy tartness is unexpected but invigorating, like a cool drink on a fevered brow. Camel drivers sometimes carried dolo for its refreshment and mild hydration. The low alcohol content helped guard against bacterial contamination. Scholars debate whether dolo's popularity stemmed from its practical uses or its social significance, but its presence here feels like a blessing. You swallow the last drop and resume your journey under the moon's watchful eye. The terrain gradually changes. The sand gives way to compacted clay flats where the handlers encourage a brief trot. Your legs respond with surprising agility, muscles flexing in smooth, powerful strides. Trot isn't your primary gait, but under the handler's cues, you find a steady rhythm that covers ground faster than walking without exhausting you. The handlers laugh softly as the panniers sway, their voices harmonizing with your hooves' cadence. Thud, 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 thud. Soon, low hills rise ahead, rocky outcrops marking the eastern approaches to Gao, the riverine city famed for its mud-brick architecture and bustling markets. The handlers point out the distant Niger River's reflective ribbon, glittering under the moon. Waters of the Niger were vital lifelines. Caravanners often followed its course, knowing that settlements and trade nodes clustered along its banks. Some adventurers claim that at night the river seems to glow, but geographers attribute this to fine algae blooms under moonlight, a detail still under academic review. As you near the river's edge, the ground softens into sand mixed with silt. The handlers adjust your saddlebags, ensuring they're secure against the smoother terrain. You feel the air shift, carrying hints of fresh water, mud, and distant cooking fires. The smell is different, alive rather than desert dry. You inhale deeply, nostrils flaring at the mingling scents, fresh fish from river traps, wood smoke from riverbank hearths, and the faint perfume of cultivated flowers in Gao's gardens. You step onto a simple reed ferry, a flatboat bound by rope and reeds, guided by a ferryman shouting softly in Tamashek. Your hooves clack on the wooden planks as you board, panniers snug at your sides. The ferry rocks gently, the handlers follow, their silhouettes swaying. The ferryman polishes a small brass lantern, whose golden glow ripples across dark water. The lantern's flame is protected by a glass globe, an innovation introduced by Arab traders. Some historians assert this glass came from Venetian merchants, while others argue it was locally produced. Either way, it lights your path to the opposite bank. You stand patiently as the ferry pushes off, crossing the wide Niger. Water laps gently against the hull, each oar stroke singing a soft, repetitive lullaby. The tension of the dunes melts away with the ebbing current. Across the river, you glimpse fires burning along the riverbank, homes, taverns, and marketplaces alive with nocturnal energy. Gao's city lights glimmer like fallen stars, guiding you home. Once ashore, handlers guide you through a narrow path lined with date palms and small, whitewashed huts. The scent of fresh bread, fougasse, drifts through the air, mixed with the musk of river mud. You step over low thresholds and settle into a courtyard surrounded by petal-fringed gardens. The handlers uncinch your panniers, loosening leather straps that have hugged you for hours. You feel the cool night breeze sweep across your still steamy fur coat. A host offers you a final treat, a handful of roasted millet mixed with honey and ground nuts. You crunch gratefully, savoring the nutty sweetness that lingers on your tongue. In medieval Gao, such snacks were served to esteemed visitors, confirming your status as a valued courier. Oral histories recount how camels receiving such honors were granted prime resting spots and extra forage. Folklore even suggests that honored camels blessed the host's household with good fortune, though folklorists debate whether these tales were symbolic or taken quite literally. As you rest, under the moonlit sky, the handlers knead your shoulders and whisper gratitude for your steadfast service. You kneel on the soft courtyard sand, head lowered, as they spread a light cloth over your back. The gentle fabric cools your skin, a welcome contrast to the day's heat. Above, the stars twinkle like knowing eyes. You feel content. You've traversed dunes, crossed basins, navigated by moon and marker, and now stand at the threshold of Gao, the empire's beating heart. With each hoofbeat, you've carried messages and memories, forging connections that span deserts and rivers, binding distant communities in shared purpose. You close your eyes, lulled by distant river sounds and handlers' murmured blessings. The night in Gao offers both rest and reverence, a moment of calm before dawn's next call. And as you drift towards sleep, you know tomorrow's journey will continue, each step guided by stars, sealed letters, and the enduring spirit of Mali's postal camels. You awake before dawn in the courtyard of Gao, the city's mud-brick walls glowing faintly under the pale light of early morning. The handlers stir around you, unfolding their mats, murmuring greetings in Soninka and Tamashek. A cool breeze drifts down from the river, carrying the promise of new labor and fresh challenges. You stretch your long legs, joints creaking softly, an inevitable reminder that even desert-hardened camels need movement to stay limber. Your first task today is to traverse the bustling river market, where goods overflow wooden stalls like a vibrant tapestry. Handlers lead you through narrow lanes lined with pottery, woven baskets, and colorful cloths imported from distant lands. The air is rich with the scent of spices, cloves, cinnamon, and ginger, all arriving by caravan this very season. Historically, Gao's market was a cosmopolitan hub in the 14th century, drawing traders from North Africa, the Maghreb, and even as far as Andalusia. Scholars still debate the precise scale of these exchanges, but archaeological digs of unearthed coins minted in Tunisia and shards of Italian glass, underscoring Gao's role in global trade networks. Your panniers remain lightly strapped as handlers pause to negotiate fresh trade, a bundle of salt blocks for a stash of finely woven cloth, a pouch of gold dust for a crate of millet cakes. You stand patiently, accustomed to these transactions. A curious passerby, the city's Mansa's personal scribe, examines the colored wax seals on your panniers, murmuring admiration for their craftsmanship. Wax seals were practical and symbolic. Their hues indicated priority and origin, while their motifs denoted official sanction. Historians still argue over whether specific seal colors were standardized across the empire or varied by local governor's decree. After the market, you're led toward the river docks to load letters onto a reed barge bound for Jenne. The journey upriver is a vital link. Messages delivered by camel must then transfer to watercraft to reach inland cities. As you approach the dock, fishermen untangle nets and salt miners sort coarse crystals by hand, their swift movements mirrored by the handlers stacking your panniers onto the barge's deck. You survey the scene, boats constructed from bundled reeds coated in pitch, cozily bobbing against the wooden pier. It's said that reed boats could last only a few years before needing replacement, yet they were prized for ease of construction and local materials. Maritime archaeologists debate how these boats compared to North African vessels in terms of durability and capacity. The handlers anchor the barge, and you step aboard, careful not to throw off balance the narrow craft. Your hooves clack on, the bundled reeds resonance carried by the hull into the quiet water. You settle in, legs tucked neatly beneath you, while handlers tie you to a low post with a soft rope, ensuring you don't shift during the float. The deck smells of wet reeds and sun-baked river mud, an earthy aroma that speaks of life sustained by water in an otherwise harsh land. As the barge drifts southward, the handlers paddle with long poles, steering through gentle currents. You watch as the riverbanks drift by, lush reeds, towering grasses, and occasional baobab trees that lean over the water like ancient guardians. The handlers share stories of the fabled lost city of the river, rumored to lie beyond the next bend, a place where gold mines glinted beneath moonlight. Some believe the city was swallowed by a river flood. Others maintain it remains hidden, protected by spirits. Geographers still debate whether any historical basis exists or if it's purely legend. Mid-journey, the handlers offer you fresh riverine herbs, lemon verbena crushed into a paste and applied to your nostrils. The scent is crisp and tangy, clearing your air passages and invigorating your senses. These herbs were harvested along the Niger's edge by local healers who believed their aromatic oils warded off respiratory ailments. Folklorists argue whether this practice spread from Mande communities or originated independently in the riverine cultures. Above you, pelicans wheel across the sky, their white feathers stark against the morning light. Fishermen shout greetings and children wave from riverbank villages, pointing excitedly at the unusual sight of a camel aboard a boat. You snort softly in acknowledgement, the sound startling a flock of pigeons roosting on a nearby hut. Rumor has it that carrier pigeons once accompanied postal routes, their messages tied to legs rather than humps. Ornithologists still test whether medieval pigeons could reliably traverse such vast distances, but the idea remains charming. As the barge approaches the bustling port of Jenne, famed for its grand great mosque of sun-dried brick and wooden scaffolding protruding like palm fronds, you feel anticipation. Jenne is a center of Islamic scholarship and trade. Letters exchanged here may be carried into North Africa by camel or up the river by boat. You savor the thought of contributing to this grand flow of knowledge. The barge bumps gently against the dock, and handlers release your rope. You step off onto clay-packed ground, panniers restored to your back by a new team of handlers. They inspect seals one last time before tightening straps, whispering blessings for a swift desert return. You snort in contentment, acknowledging their care. You lift your head to take in the city. Sun-baked walls, stalls overflowing with leather goods, and scholars walking in long robes toward madrasas. The handlers adjust your reins and lead you to a small courtyard where a trough awaits, a final riverine oasis before the Sahara's sands reclaim you. You drink deeply, savoring the cool liquid. The handlers feed you yellow millet porridge flavored with river fish flakes, a taste far different from desert fare but welcome nonetheless. You chew thoughtfully, energy returning to your muscles like the river restoring parched lands. As the sun reaches its zenith, you pause under the shade of a baobab tree pillar, reflecting on the seamless blend of river and desert. How camels and boats together wove Mali's communication network, how reeds and leather, rivers and dunes combined to sustain an empire. You stand, panniers secure, breath steady. Ahead lies the path back across sands and stones. Behind you, Jenne's pulse hums with trade and faith. And you, the steadfast postal camel, prepare for the desert's embrace once more. You follow your new handlers through the shaded courtyard, into the grand mud-brick palace of Gao, its towering walls warmed by centuries of sun. The palace stands beside the Niger River, its crenellated parapets and lattice windows gleaming softly in the midday light. Inside, the air is cooler. Thick masonry and deep alcoves trap shade, creating pockets of relief from the desert's relentless heat. You step across flagstone paths, each slab worn smooth by the footsteps of traders, envoys, and now camels like you. Your panniers are carefully removed, straps unbuckled by attendants dressed in flowing white robes. They brush stray hairs from your fur, revealing the sheen of your coat beneath the dust. A pool of water awaits, a shallow marble basin carved with geometric patterns, filled with cool water scented faintly with rose petals. You dip your muzzle and lap slowly, the floral undertones mingling with the sweet clarity of river water. It feels like anointing, a ceremonial purification fitting for a royal guest. This is the court of Gao's governor, a regional vassal of the Mali Empire, entrusted with administering trade and justice. Historically, Gao's rulers governed from such palaces, issuing decrees and overseeing caravans that connected Saharan trade routes to the wider world. Arabic chroniclers describe grand receptions here, with gold-dusted dancers and tributary delegations presenting lavish gifts. Scholars still debate how often camels themselves, symbols of the empire's reach, were honored within these walls, but you, at least, feel welcomed. A procession of court officials arrives, their sandals clicking against the stone floor. They wear turbans ringed with dyed indigo, signifying their rank, and carry scrolls sealed with the governor's emblem. One official approaches your handlers and inspects the letters you delivered, unrolling one parchment to read its crimson seal. Satisfied, he offers a nod of approval and directs your handlers to replace your panniers with new dispatches destined for the Saharan outposts to the east. While your panniers are reloaded, you're guided to a shaded alcove where attendants offer you a lavish repast. A shallow platter is set before you, heaped with pounded millet porridge known as tuwo, its surface dotted with tender morsels of beef stew flavored with tamarind and ginger. Though camels typically ate dried fodder, here they serve you a special treat mashed to a consistency you can easily consume. As you eat, the savory, sour broth soaks into the porridge, creating a rich blend of heat and spice that warms your belly against the building afternoon sun. Nearby, a harpist plucks gentle melodies on a ngoni, the West African lute, whose strings echo like distant waves. The music floats through the courtyard, weaving with the soft murmur of fountains carved into marble basins. You inhale deeply, ears tuned to the ngoni's soothing resonance, a reminder that this palace, though a center of power, is also a sanctuary of art and culture. Art historians note that such musical performances accompanied diplomatic missions, and some records suggest that camels, honored in court, received blessings sung by royal musicians. Whether literal or allegorical, the idea imbues you with pride. After your meal, a court veterinarian arrives carrying a small satchel of medicated ointments and herbs. He examines your legs and hump, applying a paste of crushed shea butter infused with tamarind bark to soothe any chafing. He murmurs a diagnostic phrase in Arabic, al-ilaj bil-tababa, treatment by nature. The ointment's cool, slightly tangy aroma envelops you, easing the heat under your panniers. You close your eyes as his practiced hands knead, your muscles, the world outside, fading beneath the palace's vaulted arcades. Once your body is tended, you're guided to a stable carved into the palace's corner, its walls whitewashed and straw-strewn floor swept clean. A shallow trough of oat mash, casco, is offered, the cooked oats sweetened with date syrup and studded with crunchy pigeon peas. You taste it cautiously, Its texture is creamy, the sweetness balanced by earthy beans. It's a culinary innovation, blending local and imported grains, a fitting dish for a realm that thrives on trans-Saharan commerce. Your handlers step away, leaving you to rest. You lie down on a bed of fresh palm fronds laid beneath a carved wooden canopy. The canopy's pillars feature brass inlays depicting camels and gnarled acacia trees. One panel shows a silhouette of Gao's skyline against the Niger, a reminder that you, too, are part of the city's living tapestry. A faint breeze drifts through open lattice windows, carrying scents of incense burning in the adjoining chamber. The amber smoke curls like drifting ribbons, its aroma a mix of myrrh and local desert sage. As you settle, a court scribe approaches with a stylus and a wax tablet. He carefully inscribes a record of your visit, arrival time, number of letters delivered, and the distances covered by your journey so far. Scribes in medieval Mali recorded such details meticulously, ensuring governors could track the speed and reliability of their postal network. Some researchers suggest that these records influenced early administrative systems in West Africa, though the extent remains under scholarly debate. Behind you, lanterns flicker to life as dusk approaches. Their soft glow illuminates the stenciled doorways and casts dancing shadows on mud-brick walls. Within the stable, the atmosphere is hushed, as though the palace itself is resting after a day of formalities. Outside, distant drums signal the beginning of the governor's evening audience, matters of trade, tax, and governance ready to be addressed at the river's edge. You close your eyes, absorbing the gentle sounds, the pluck of the ngoni, the murmur of scribes in the courtyard, the soft clop of hoofbeats on palace stone as other couriers come and go, the grandeur around you, the intricate carvings, the flowing robes of officials, the mosaic of sandalwood and incense is a world away from the endless dunes. Yet you've traversed both realms. You feel honored, refreshed, and ready to resume your postal duties on the morrow. And so you rest in the royal courts, a silent envoy cushioned by luxury, poised to carry Mali's messages onward, from palace to palace, from city to oasis, across the timeless sands you call home. You rise before dawn once more, stepping into the cool pre-dawn air of Gao's courtyard, where the handlers await. Today marks the return path through baobab groves, a scenic route chosen for both its relative shelter and the presence of hardy forage. As you stretch, the handlers secure your panniers and lead you through a narrow gate flanked by two towering baobabs, ancient giants with bulbous trunks and gnarled branches that stretch skyward like arthritic fingers. The path ahead is sandy but interspersed with patches of compacted earth and debris from fallen seed pods. Baobab trees shed fruit that look like massive oblong gourds. Inside, a cottony pulp surrounds hard seeds. Handlers collect these pods, cracking them open for the pulp, rich in vitamin C and moisture, feeding both camels and travelers. You receive your first handful. The pulp is tangy and fibrous, clinging to your lips like sweet cotton candy. It feels curious, tasting like a lemony marshmallow, and you savor the unexpected treat. Historically, baobab trees served as life-saving landmarks and food sources across the Sahel. Some are estimated to be over 1,000 years old, their trunks hollowed to store water by desert tribes. Scholars debate whether certain groves were deliberately cultivated along trade routes, or simply used when stumbled upon, but in your case, the handlers clearly trust these trees as reliable stops. As you proceed, the handlers prune low-hanging branches to clear the way, though you could easily navigate them. Their careful gestures speak of respect for these venerable sentinels. In some traditions, baobabs are considered sacred, home to spirits that watch over desert travelers. Anthropologists still discuss whether rituals performed at these trees, leaving cloth offerings or tying colored ribbons, were pre-Islamic practices that melded with local Islamic beliefs or separate folk customs preserved in isolated communities. Mid-morning, light filters through the baobab canopy, casting mottled shadows on the ground. You notice tiny shrubs thriving in the baobab's shade, resilient grasses and wild sorghum stalks that offer precious grazing. Handlers guide you off the main path and demonstrate how to nibble these shoots carefully, avoiding thorny bits. The wild sorghum tastes earthy and nutty, a reminder of home for handlers who once farmed its domesticated varieties near the Niger's floodplain. Your journey continues past clusters of baobabs until you reach a natural clearing dotted with large stones, ancient meeting places where caravans once paused to exchange news. Handlers point to faint petroglyph carvings on one stone, spirals and crescents interlaced with hoofprints and human footprints. Locals believe these carvings commemorate legendary caravans that carried messages between Mansa Musa and North African sultans. Archaeologists debate their age, with some dating them to pre-Mali empires. Others argue they're post-empire graffiti. You run a gentle hoof over the stone's surface, a silent nod to history. As you depart the clearing, a sudden wind picks up, swirling dust into miniature whirlwinds. The handlers wrap cloths around your nostrils to filter grit. You plod steadily through the gusts, trusting that the baobab grove ahead will offer respite. Beyond the clearing, the path narrows into a grove of younger baobabs, slender maroon trunks sprouting leaves that quiver with the breeze. A handler reaches into a pocket and extracts a small flask of baobab oil massaged into your joints. The oil, cold-pressed from seeds, feels silky and slightly sticky, with a nutty aroma that mixes with the earthiness of the grove. It soothes the strain of constant travel, reducing friction beneath your panniers. Medicinal historians note that baobab oil was used to treat skin ailments and joint pain in medieval Sahel communities, but debate persists on whether its therapeutic properties were scientifically appreciated or mythically attributed. The grove's path curves until you glimpse a small, seasonal village built around a centuries-old baobab whose trunk splits into 3 massive pillars. Villagers have hollowed out one pillar to serve as a communal granary, its interior lined with clay to preserve millet and sorghum through dry seasons. A child waves at you, and the handlers respond with welcoming gestures. The village elder steps forward, presenting a clay bowl of baobab porridge, a blend of baobab pulp, millet flour, and a drizzle of date syrup. The texture is smooth with a pleasant tartness, like yogurt stirred with honey. You taste it gratefully, recognizing the porridge as both nourishment and a token of local hospitality. After the villagers bless your journey with a prayer in Arabic, referencing both Allah and their ancestral spirits, you depart the grove. The handlers refill your water gourd from a nearby well lined with carved stones. The well's depth is marked by notches on the outer rim, notations counting caravan visits over decades. Historians debate whether such notations were formal records or casual markings, but each notch signifies lives sustained by this oasis. As you exit the baobab grove, the terrain opens onto a wide plain where the Niger's silvery ribbon glints. In the distance, the handlers guide you toward a stone marker, indicating you're halfway back to the desert. They tighten your panniers and retrieve a small folded map, an ivory-thin parchment coated in wax to repel moisture. The map details the next leg, crossing a narrow band of termite mounds known as the termite spine, reputed for its sharp structures and punishing heat reflections. You brace yourself, recalling the careful reed mats used in the dunes. Here, the Handlers will deploy woven grass mats to stabilize the mounds and allow safe passage. You carry on, memories of baobab shade and hospitality warmed in your mind. Each hoofbeat echoes the ancient cadence of the postal network, a living rhythm that binds groves and marketplaces, sands and rivers into a single tapestry of resilience and connection. You travel through the termite spine as the sun dips low, painting the sky in blazing orange and soft lavender hues. The termite mounds, towering pillars of hardened earth, rise like ancient sentinels, their spires casting long, intricate shadows across the plain. The handlers lay woven grass mats between the mounds, creating a narrow corridor of firm footing. Each grass stem, tied meticulously by hand, supports your hooves, preventing painful slips and protecting your legs from sharp edges. You step carefully, following the handlers' whispered directions, grateful for their foresight. Once past the termite labyrinth, the landscape opens to a vast, undulating plain. Twilight deepens and the temperature drops, bringing a welcome relief from the day's heat. You pause at a small dune crest to gaze upward. The desert night sky reveals itself in full splendor, an expanse of stars so dense it overwhelms the senses. The Milky Way glimmers as a broad, translucent river of light, and constellations unfamiliar to city dwellers, like the Camel's Hump and the Trader's Cross, stand out clearly. Your handlers point to each cluster, murmuring names in Soninka and Arabic, sharing ancient celestial lore that guided caravans for centuries. Historically, desert travelers relied on the night sky to navigate, using stars as steadfast waypoints when the dunes erased every earthly marker. Some medieval manuscripts from Timbuktu mention star maps drawn on animal skins, though scholars debate how widespread their use actually was. In any case, you feel their legacy tonight, stars guiding your steps as surely as any caravan. Leader's compass. A handler offers you a quick sip of chilled water, kept cool in a goatskin flask buried in the sand during the day. You lap at the water gratefully, feeling the cool liquid slide down your throat. It's a small luxury reminiscent of oasis relief, but carried on the heels of rigid discipline. The handlers then initiate a custom called sky blessing. They spread a cloth on the ground atop which they place small tokens, a carved wooden camel, a clay bowl of millet porridge, and a handful of powdered frankincense. A brief prayer rises in Arabic, Alaykum bil khair wal amn, peace and security, upon you. The tokens symbolize safe passage, nourishment, and divine protection. You stand solemnly as they offer these blessings to the heavens, trusting in rituals passed through generations. As you resume your journey under the starlit canopy, each hoofbeat resonates with calm determination. The handlers hum a quiet lullaby, in Tamashek, weaving traditional melodies with verses praising desert skies. The song's rhythm matches your breathing, your heart, your slow, steady pace. Night creatures stir. You glimpse the reflective eyes of desert foxes, fennec foxes adapted to the sand, darting between shrubs. A jackal calls in the distance, its plaintive howl echoing off dunes. These sounds form a nocturnal symphony that underscores your solitude and connection to the wild. At a flat stretch of firm sand, the handlers briefly break into a trot, urging you forward with gentle nudges. The rhythm shifts, thud, 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 accelerated yet sustainable. The twilight air cools further, each breath crystallizing into vapor that disappears in seconds. You relish the motion, muscles waking fully after the day's slow trek. Ahead, you spot a cluster of palm stumps marking the former side of a dried-up oasis. The handlers explain that this was once a watering hole, but shifting sands and climate changes led to its decline. The palms, now reduced to stumps, stand as silent memorials to nature's fickle fortunes. Some environmental historians argue these shifts contributed to medieval Mali's periodic famines, while others point to human migration patterns as key factors. Regardless, you sense the weight of history in the silent palms. You continue, guided by the handlers who keep one eye
on the horizon and another on the stars.
They use the North Star, Sidi Ali, to maintain direction, steady, unmoving, reliable. Without modern tools, this star served as the ultimate compass. Though debates persist about star nomenclature across desert cultures, the principle holds. The heavens provided a universal map when none stood on Earth. As midnight approaches, the handlers decide to rest briefly. They spread mats and encourage you to lie down. You sink onto the cool sand, nostrils flaring as you inhale the pure night
air. The handlers share a small bowl of fermented camel milk, shubat, pouring it gently into a shallow dish.
The tangy, creamy beverage coats your throat, its proteins and fats restoring energy after strenuous trot. They then point to the sky, gesturing at a cluster of stars flickering in unison. Someone murmurs the legend of the 7 sister camels, a group of stars that, according to caravan law, represent 7 camels who once guided a lost trader for 7 nights. The story's truth is unverified, and historians debate its origins, but the image comforts you. You, too, are one of many camels bound for greatness across the desert night. The handlers sing softly again, blending Arabic and Soninka lyrics, invoking protection and gratitude. You hum along, a low-throated resonance that meshes with their voices and the desert's chorus. Above, the moon creeps from behind dunes, casting a pale, ghostly light that bathes the sands in silver. As the lullaby ends, you close your eyes, each breath sinking with the handler's gentle exhalations. The stars wheel slowly overhead, but you feel anchored, an appointed otherworld beneath a heavenly vault. In this moment, you are more than a postal camel. You are a traveler, a guardian of secrets, a bearer of blessings, cradled by the desert's infinite night sky. You awake to the soft glow of dawn's first light filtering through the camp tents. The handlers move quietly, preparing for your final homecoming celebration. Today marks the completion of your week-long odyssey across dunes, oases, river crossings, and palaces. You stretch each joint, feeling the satisfying looseness earned from 700 miles of relentless journeying. The leather straps on your panniers have molded perfectly to your hump, and the wax seals, now faded by sun and sand, bear testament to countless secrets delivered faithfully. As you step toward the camp's central tent, a procession forms. Handlers from every relay station, Timbuktu, Gao, Jenne, and even the Tuareg guides you met along the way, have gathered, dressed in their finest robes dyed indigo, saffron, and crimson. They form 2 ranks, creating a corridor for your entrance. Overhead, the sky is a flawless blue, and the air carries the mixed scents of millet cakes, date wine, and fresh incense, libations prepared specifically for this moment. You walk slowly, each hoofbeat a deliberate thump on the packed earth. The handlers play gentle drums, the dun-dun, whose deep, resonant tones echo through the camp like welcoming trumpets. Flutes weave a high, lilting counterpoint, reminding you of the night. Journey under Gao stars. Camels and humans alike stand silently, heads bowed in respect as you pass. This ritual honors your steadfast service, 7 days of carrying letters, gold dust, secrets, and hopes across the heart of the Mali Empire. At the procession's end stands the emir's representative, a dignitary garbed in brocaded velvet and ornate jewelry. He holds a staff topped with a carved camel emblem, a symbol of postal service itself. With solemn grace, he taps the staff on the ground 3 times, signaling the ceremony's completion. The handlers cheer softly, an intricate, melodic chant in Arabic and Soninka that translates to "Traveler true, you have bridged our lands." You respond with a low, dignified snort, acknowledging their praise. Next, a feast is laid out.
Low wooden tables groan under plates of spiced lamb, hearty bowls of peanut stew thickened with baobab pulp, and platters of dates and sweet fritters. The camels of honor, only those completing such voyages, are offered a special grain mix.
Roasted millet, honey, and crushed acacia pods roasted over fragrant cedrala wood. You kneel and accept the mixture, savoring each sweet, nutty bite. It's the richest meal you've ever known, a reward befitting an imperial courier. Musicians gather, kora players strum harp-like strings, griots chant epic praises of Mansa, Musa's glory, and dancers weave between camel legs, their footwork precise and celebratory. You watch, ears flicking in time with the rhythms, feeling the festival's pulse in your chest. Children dart around, playful and mischievous, offering you tiny, hand-carved camel toys as tokens of gratitude. You sniff each toy, tipping your head gently as if to bid them well. As midday approaches, the emir's representative steps forward again, holding a scroll of commendation sealed with elaborate gold embossing. He reads aloud in sonorous Arabic a proclamation. By decree of the emir and the blessed legacy of Mansa Musa, this noble camel is hereby honored as messenger of the sands, guardian of our words, and witness to our unity. Then, in a gesture blending whimsy and reverence, he affixes a small, gilded medallion, shaped like a crescent moon overlaying a hoofprint, onto your harness. The handlers beam. You feel a swell of pride warming your thick coat. After the formalities, the celebrations continue with less ceremony and more communal joy. Delegations from distant caravan posts share news, some of impending storms, others of new trade agreements signed in far-off courts. Each speaker stands beside you, gesturing animatedly as they recount their part in the postal chain. You remain the silent center, nodding in solidarity. In the afternoon, a gentle rain, a rare blessing in the dry season, begins to fall. Tiny droplets patter on tents and sand, hissing briefly on hot hides before soaking in. The rain refreshes the air, and handlers greet it with relieved laughter, scooping drops into their mouths and offering some to you via a folded leaf. The cold water cools your tongue, closing the final chapter of your journey in nature's embrace. As the rain eases, night preparations begin.
Lanterns, new ones gifted for this occasion, are hung along the procession path. They glow with beeswax candles scented with local honey and frankincense. The handlers gather in a circle, drumming and chanting in reversed order. First, highest.
Drummers, then midline, then bass, creating a layered crescendo that builds until it feels like the earth itself is singing. Camels from nearby caravans join in, their collective hum merging with human voices and instruments into a grand nocturnal symphony. Finally, the handlers lead you back to your personal tent, now richly decorated with embroidered fabrics and fresh straw bedding. A small, dainty bowl of sweetened goat milk awaits, an after-feast indulgence. You sip it slowly, the sweetness lingering as you feel every muscle relax in the pampered comfort. Attendants drape a soft blanket across your shoulders, embroidered with geometric patterns echoing silk work from distant mosques. As you settle beneath the tent's canopy, handlers lay out handfuls of crushed herbs, lavender and desert sage beneath your bed. The aromas drift up, Mingling with the scent of fresh rain on sand, they murmur blessings for restful sleep, strokes tracing soothing patterns along your neck. You close your eyes, each breath drawing in calm and release. Above, the night sky is clear again, the earlier clouds swept away by desert winds. Men and women, exhausted and elated, drift back to their own camps, lanterns flickering behind them. The drumming fades, replaced by the soft whisper of rain-slicked breeze through acacia leaves. You lie quietly, chest gently rising and falling. As the handlers light a final incense coil, amber smoke curling toward the tent's highest point, a silent farewell. Each curl of smoke carries gratitude for your service, hope for your continued health, and respect for your silent dedication. And as the rain's last drops patter against the tent fabric, you drift into sleep, honored, celebrated, and deeply connected to every grain of sand, every star above, and every voice that chanted your praise. Now, as you rest under the gentle canopy of embroidered cloth, feel the weight of celebration lift from your shoulders. The soft straw beneath you cradles your tired muscles, and the woven blanket offers warmth that seeps into every fiber of your being. The sweet scents of lavender and desert sage surround you, weaving a gentle tapestry of comfort. Each breath you take is calm and unhurried, matching the slow rhythm of the desert night. In this quiet moment, remember the vast dunes you crossed, the oases that quenched your thirst, the bustling markets that tested your patience, and the palaces that honored your service. All these experiences now settle into memory like gentle ripples on a still lake, fading into peaceful reflection. The world outside continues its silent dance, stars above, soft earth below. But here you are safe, supported, and deeply at ease. Let every worry melt away, carried off by the whispering breeze through acacia leaves. Feel your muscles unwind, your tendons soften, your mind let go of every distant thought. In place of tension, allow gratitude to fill your heart. Gratitude for the journey, for the hands that guided you, and for the quiet strength within yourself. Tonight, know that you are cherished, from caravan handlers to distant governors, from shimmering sands to starlit skies. Sleep in this moment of stillness, wrapped in honor and serenity. Let the lullaby of memories and the promise of tomorrow's dawn carry you into a gentle, restorative slumber. Sweet dreams.